Let me tell you something straight. If you don't know your own worth, nobody else will. I see too many women sitting around hoping and praying that the man they love is going to suddenly wake up and realize how valuable they are. Let me be honest with you, he won't. Not until you show him what it's like to actually respect your value. You see, self-worth is not about arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than anyone else. And it's certainly not about playing games. Self-worth is knowing that you deserve attention, love, and respect, and refusing to settle for anything less. When a man ignores you, it's not just a matter of being rude or inattentive. It's a reflection of what he thinks he can get away with. And if you let him get away with ignoring you, you're telling him that your value doesn't matter. That's why self-worth must come first. You have to establish that before you expect anyone else to treat you right. Let's be real. Many women confuse love with giving in. They confuse patience with tolerance. They confuse loyalty with allowing themselves to be disrespected. And men notice that. They notice when you bend over backwards for attention and validation. They notice when you accept being overlooked. And when they notice that, they begin to test the limits because they know there are no boundaries. Self-worth is the armor you put on to stop that kind of behavior. It's what allows you to say, I am not invisible. I am not disposable. I am not someone you get to ignore and then expect to be there when it's convenient. Now, I want you to imagine this. A man who ignores you is like someone standing in front of a shop looking at something they want, but they keep walking past. If you just sit there hoping they will notice you eventually, you're not teaching him anything. You're just hoping that your presence alone will be enough. And let me tell you, hope is not a strategy. Strategy is knowing your value and acting like it. When you know your worth, you don't wait for validation. You carry yourself with confidence, and that confidence sends a message louder than words ever could. You are showing him, without saying a single word, that your time, your attention, and your love are not cheap, that they are precious, and if he ignores them, he's missing out on someone extraordinary. Self-worth is about setting limits. If a man ignores you, you don't beg for attention, you don't send text after text, and you don't sit around thinking, maybe he's just busy. No. Self-worth tells you to take a step back. Self-worth tells you to protect your energy. Self-worth tells you to live your life fully so that your presence or your absence is noticed. Because let's face it, when you let someone treat you as if you don't matter, they don't realize the value they're losing until it's too late. When you act like your worth is obvious through your actions, when you walk through the world with pride in who you are, you don't have to tell anyone that you matter. They see it and they feel it. And I know this is hard because love can make you blind. Love can make you think maybe he's just going through something. Maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe if I try harder, he'll see me. That's when you have to stop and check yourself. Ask yourself, am I bending over backwards for someone who doesn't even recognize me? Am I giving my energy to someone who won't give me the time of day? Am I making myself small so that he can feel big? Because if the answer is yes, then you are ignoring your own self-worth. You're letting your value be defined by someone else's attention. And that is the quickest way to feel invisible and unimportant. A man who respects you doesn't have to be reminded constantly of your worth. He doesn't ignore you because he understands the treasure he has in front of him. But a man who ignores you, that's your cue. That's your sign that you need to step back, take a deep breath, and show him through your actions that your time, your love, and your attention are not to be taken for granted. You don't do it with anger. You don't do it with game. You do it with the quiet power of self-respect. You do it by living fully, smiling more, focusing on your goals, spending time with people who appreciate you, and shining in ways that make him realize that ignoring you was a mistake. Think about it this way. When you know your value, you're not reacting to his behavior. You're creating a reality where your presence commands respect. You're no longer chasing him, you're living your life. You're no longer waiting by the phone. You're out there building your dreams, enjoying your friends, and growing in ways that make your absence a real loss to anyone who chooses to ignore you. Self-worth is the message you send without saying a word. I am someone worth noticing, someone worth loving, and someone worth respecting. If you ignore me, that's your loss, not mine. And let me be clear, self-worth is not selfish. It's not about putting yourself above everyone else. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and heart are valuable commodities. You can't give freely to someone who won't reciprocate. You can't be invisible in a relationship and expect to be treated like gold. When you know your value, you set the tone for the relationship. You set the standard for how you want to be treated, and anyone who doesn't respect that standard quickly learns that they cannot take you for granted. So when a man ignores you, don't panic, don't chase, don't beg. Instead, look in the mirror and remind yourself of who you are. Remind yourself of your talents, your beauty, your intelligence, your kindness, and your heart. Remind yourself that no one has the right to make you feel small or invisible. Then go out and live your life in a way that makes your value undeniable. The right man, the man who deserves you, will notice. The wrong man will have no choice but to feel the weight of what he's missing. That's the power of self-worth. That's the power of knowing your value and never letting anyone make you feel invisible. Remember, nobody can define your worth but you. Not your partner, not your friends, not your family, only you. And once you understand that, once you live it, you'll stop wasting your energy on people who don't see your value. You'll stop waiting for someone to notice you and start living a life that makes your presence undeniable. And that, my friend, is how you teach the price of being ignored without saying a single word. Boundaries are everything in a relationship. And when I say boundaries, I don't mean just rules you make up on the spot or conditions you throw out when you're upset. I'm talking about clear, firm lines that show a man exactly how you expect to be treated and what happens when he crosses them. Too many women in relationships today allow men to ignore them, dismiss them, or take them for granted because they haven't established boundaries. And here's the thing. When a man ignores you and there's no consequence, he doesn't learn anything. He doesn't realize that his behavior is unacceptable. He doesn't understand that your time, your attention, and your love are valuable, and that ignoring them is not an option. Boundaries are not about controlling him. They're about showing your self-respect, your standards, and the price of taking you for granted. A lot of women think boundaries are about being cold or distant, but that's not the case. Boundaries are about clarity. Boundaries are about teaching through action, not punishment. You set the standard for how you will be treated, and when that standard is violated, there has to be a natural consequence. If he ignores you, the consequence isn't overreacting, yelling, or trying to shame him. The consequence is showing him that his behavior will not affect you negatively, that you will not tolerate being overlooked, and that your attention is not something to be wasted. You are worth more than being a convenience in someone's life, and boundaries make that known. When a man ignores you repeatedly and you do nothing, you are sending a message that it's okay, that it's acceptable, that your feelings, your time, and your presence are optional. And when he gets used to that, it becomes a pattern, a habit. He won't just ignore you occasionally. He'll start thinking it's the norm. That's why boundaries are so important. They prevent that pattern from forming in the first place. You must define the limits of how much you will tolerate and the ways you will respond when those limits are crossed. Boundaries are not threats. They are demonstrations of self-worth in action. Let me break it down further. If he ignores your messages, You don't chase him. You don't call repeatedly. You don't try to guilt him into paying attention. You take a step back, you redirect your energy, and you let him see that your time is valuable. You have work to do, friends to see, goals to achieve, and a life. That doesn't revolve around waiting for him. That is a boundary. You are saying, without words, that ignoring me is unacceptable, and my attention is not guaranteed. He will either step up or step aside. And either way, you win because you've protected your dignity and self-respect. Boundaries also teach men about respect. Many men don't understand what respect looks like until it's clearly demonstrated. They may say they care about you, but their actions prove otherwise. Ignoring you, brushing off your concerns, or treating you as secondary is disrespect. Boundaries force him to acknowledge that disrespect has a cost. You can't let him off the hook simply because he's nice sometimes or because you love him. Love without respect is dangerous. It's a recipe for disappointment and heartache. Boundaries make sure that your love is given only where respect exists and that your heart isn't taken for granted. Another critical aspect of boundaries is consistency. It's not enough to set limits once and then ignore them the next day because you're feeling emotional. If you set a boundary, you enforce every single time. That's what builds credibility and ensures that your standards are taken seriously. If he sees that ignoring you has no real consequence, he will continue to push the line. But if he realizes that crossing a boundary means you step back, detach, or take space, he will think twice before treating you carelessly. Boundaries are not negotiable because they are tied to your self-respect. Once you make them flexible, you've lost the lesson entirely. Boundaries are also about protecting your emotional energy. You only have so much to give, and wasting it on someone who ignores you is self-sabotage. By enforcing boundaries, you are saying, I will protect myself. I will not allow your indifference to affect my mood, my happiness, or my life. This is empowering. When a man sees that ignoring you does not result in control over your emotions or access to your attention, he starts to understand that your worth is not negotiable. That's the true price of being ignored. He has to recognize that if he doesn't engage respectfully, he loses you. Or at the very least, he loses his influence over your life. Boundaries also provide clarity. They remove the guesswork in relationships. He knows exactly what you will and will not tolerate. You know exactly what you expect and what you deserve. Boundaries create a safe and structured emotional environment where respect and love are non-negotiable. Without boundaries, relationships become a guessing game, filled with frustration, resentment, and heartbreak. With boundaries, you take control of your life, your emotions, and your love. You dictate the terms of engagement and ensure that anyone who wants to be in your life understands the rules of respect. Let's be real. Men often don't change until they are confronted with consequences. Ignoring you without consequence doesn't teach him anything. Standing firm, stepping back, or redirecting your energy does. That is how boundaries work. It's not about punishing him. It's about demonstrating that your worth is clear, that ignoring you is unacceptable, and that your heart, time, and attention are not to be wasted. Boundaries make sure that he sees that ignoring you has a cost to him, a cost to the relationship, and a cost to his access to the best parts of you. Boundaries also give you freedom. They free you from constantly worrying, waiting, or trying to earn attention. They allow you to focus on yourself, your goals, and your happiness. You are no longer a passive participant in your own life. You are the one calling the shots. You are the one defining how love, attention, and respect are exchanged in your life. When you enforce boundaries consistently, You are sending a powerful message that your value is not up for negotiation, and that ignoring you has consequences that he cannot ignore. In the end, boundaries are about respect, self-worth, and teaching the right lessons without saying a word. They are about creating a life where you are in control of your love, your energy, and your attention. They are about showing men that if they choose to ignore you, there will be a cost. That cost may not be loud or dramatic, but it is real. Your life will go on, your happiness will continue, and your attention will not be given freely to someone who refuses to see your value. That is how you teach the price of ignoring you through boundaries that are clear, consistent, and unshakable. Let me tell you something. Too many people, especially women in relationships, make the mistake of tying their entire happiness to a man's attention. They wait around for texts, calls, or validation, thinking that if he notices them enough, everything will be okay. That's a trap. That's a pitfall that keeps you stuck in a cycle of frustration, disappointment, and invisibility. Thriving independently is one of the most powerful lessons you can learn. It's about focusing on your own happiness, your own growth, and building a life that is so full, so rich, and so meaningful that your absence is felt the moment you step away. When you thrive independently, you no longer live in a state of desperation or neediness. And suddenly, a man who ignores you starts to realize what he's missing. Thriving independently starts with knowing yourself. You have to understand your own dreams, your goals, your passions, and your values. You have to invest in yourself. That means spending time on personal growth, developing your skills, pursuing your career, and nurturing the people and activities that bring you joy. When you're fully engaged in your own life, you're not constantly waiting for someone else to fill a void or validate your worth. You're creating a life that is yours, a life that is meaningful, and a life that cannot be ignored. And let me tell you, men notice that. They notice when a woman is fully alive, fully engaged, and fully confident. Your energy becomes magnetic, and suddenly your absence carries weight. Confidence is a key part of thriving independently. Confidence doesn't mean being arrogant or dismissive. It means knowing your value and refusing to let anyone diminish it. It means walking through life with your head held high, smiling, and radiating self-assurance. Confidence is a powerful statement to anyone who chooses to ignore you. It says, I am whole on my own. I do not need your attention to feel complete. I am valuable, and if you fail to recognize it, that is your loss. Confidence is quiet but impactful. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand, but it makes your presence undeniable and your absence felt. Thriving independently also means setting your priorities. Too many women allow their lives to revolve around the whims of a man who doesn't prioritize them. You cannot let someone else's inconsistency dictate your emotions, your schedule, or your energy. Your life is yours. And when you focus on your growth and happiness, you take control. You're no longer reactive, constantly wondering where he is, why he hasn't reached out, or whether he values you. You become proactive in building the life you deserve. That's how thriving independently teaches a man the price of ignoring you, because you are fully engaged in your own life. Your absence is no longer subtle, it's glaring. A thriving woman is a woman who doesn't wait for permission to shine. She doesn't sit around hoping he will notice her accomplishments or her happiness. She celebrates herself. She invests in herself. She surrounds herself with people who uplift her. She creates a life that she loves regardless of whether or not he participates. That independence is powerful because it communicates something very important. Your love, your attention, and your presence are gifts, not entitlements. When a man realizes that you can live fully without him, he begins to understand the cost of ignoring you. It's not about manipulation. It's about showing that your happiness is not negotiable and cannot be controlled by someone else. Independence also strengthens your emotional resilience. When you thrive on your own, the ups and downs of a man's attention no longer control your emotions. You don't feel deflated or insecure when he ignores you because your sense of self-worth is rooted in your own life, not in his approval. You are grounded, confident, and self-assured. You understand that being ignored says more about him than it does about you. That emotional resilience is magnetic and commanding. Men respect it because they see that you are not dependent on them for your joy or validation. Let's talk about the power of visible independence. When you are thriving independently, you are not withdrawing in anger or trying to punish him. You are living your life openly, unapologetically, and with joy. You are pursuing your passions, spending time with friends, focusing on your career, traveling, learning, laughing, and creating memories. That visibility, the fact that you are living fully without making your absence a secret, teaches him the price of ignoring you in a way that words never could. He sees that your life doesn't revolve around him and that he is missing out on a vibrant, dynamic woman who has options, energy, and love to give to the right person. Independence is also about creating standards for yourself. A thriving woman doesn't compromise her values or tolerate being overlooked just to maintain a relationship. She knows that her attention and her love are valuable, and she will give them only where they are appreciated. That is the ultimate form of self-respect. If he ignores you, he feels the impact because your time, energy, and affection are no longer freely available. Your standards are clear, your boundaries are firm, and your life is full. That combination teaches the hard lesson that ignoring a woman who thrives independently carries consequences. Thriving independently is empowering because it flips the script in relationships. Instead of being reactive, waiting for his attention or chasing validation, you become proactive in building the life you want. You attract respect, admiration, and genuine attention because your presence is meaningful, not desperate. Men cannot take you for granted when they see that your happiness, your energy, and your love are not optional. They are reserved for those who recognize and appreciate them. Your independence commands recognition and ensures that ignoring you comes at a cost. Finally, thriving independently is about freedom. Freedom from doubt, freedom from neediness, freedom from being invisible. It's about creating a life where your attention is earned, not assumed. It's about being the kind of woman who is magnetic because she is whole, complete, and confident on her own. It's about showing a man that ignoring you doesn't make him powerful, it makes him miss out. And when he misses out on someone who is thriving, confident, and radiant, the lesson is clear. Respect and attention are non-negotiable. Your life is too full, your energy too precious, and your love too valuable to settle for anything less. When you thrive independently, everything changes. You stop waiting for him to give you validation. You stop worrying about being ignored. You stop losing yourself in someone else's inconsistencies. Instead, you build a life that commands attention, radiates confidence, and teaches the price of being ignored without ever raising your voice. You show the world and him that your worth is not determined by anyone else, and that your life, your happiness, and your love are to be respected or forfeited. Let me tell you something that too many people don't understand. Respect is not something you demand. It's something you command by the way you carry yourself. And here's the truth. If you don't respect yourself, nobody else will. That's just the way life works. You can't yell, pout, manipulate, or throw tantrums all day long, but those things don't earn respect. They earn pity, frustration, or avoidance. True respect comes from self-respect, from understanding your worth, from living your life in a way that shows people, without saying a word, that you are not to be overlooked, taken lightly, or ignored. When a man ignores you, it's not about punishing him or playing games, it's about demonstrating the kind of respect that makes him realize he cannot afford to take you for granted. See, self-respect is not arrogance. It's not about acting better than anyone else. It's about knowing who you are, what you deserve, and refusing to settle for anything less. When you walk into a room, when you answer a text, when you respond to someone's attention, self-respect is the energy that radiates from you. It tells everyone around you, especially the one who might be ignored, that your heart, your time, and your presence are valuable. You don't have to scream it. You don't have to cry over it. You just live it. And that energy, the quiet, undeniable confidence of self-respect commands attention. It makes someone stop, take notice, and realize that ignoring you carries consequences. Here's the problem with so many people. When a man ignores you, the first reaction is usually anger or manipulation. Women think, I'm going to make him jealous or I'll make him feel guilty. But that's not respect. That's desperation disguised as strategy. That doesn't teach him anything except that you are willing to bend over backward for attention. True respect is not earned through games. It's earned by showing that your love, your attention, and your presence are not to be taken for granted. If he wants to be in your life, he has to engage with you in a meaningful, respectful way, or he loses access. That's how self-respect commands attention. When you respect yourself, you also create standards. You decide what is acceptable and what is not. You determine how you allow others to treat you. And here's the crucial part. Those standards are non-negotiable. Ignoring you is not acceptable. Being dismissive is not acceptable. Disrespect is not acceptable. And when someone crosses that line, the response is not to yell, manipulate, or cry, is to step back, protect your energy, and continue living your life with confidence. That is what teaches the price of ignoring you. That is what makes a man recognize that respect is earned, not demanded, and that if he chooses to be dismissive, he is the one paying the cost. Think about it this way. Respect is like a mirror. You show someone how they should treat you by the way you treat yourself. If you allow someone to ignore you without consequence, the mirror is broken. He sees that he can act however he wants, and that your energy is always available, regardless of his behavior. But when you demonstrate self-respect, the mirror reflects a different truth. It shows him that your time, your love, your attention are valuable. It shows him that your presence is not something to be taken lightly. That's the kind of respect that commands attention, that teaches lessons without shouting, that makes someone feel the weight of their choices. Another thing to understand is that respect protects you emotionally. When you demand attention out of anger, jealousy, or manipulation, you are giving your power away. You are letting someone else control your emotions. But self-respect flips the script. You decide when, how, and with whom your energy is spent. You decide that your happiness is non-negotiable. And by doing that, you teach others that they cannot ignore you without consequence. You don't have to be loud or dramatic. You simply live with dignity, carry yourself with pride, and make your life too full and meaningful to be overlooked. Respect also creates boundaries naturally. When you have self-respect, you do not allow others to cross lines that diminish your worth. Ignoring you is a line. Disregarding your feelings is a line. Dismissing your time is a line. And the way you handle it is what commands respect. You step back, protect yourself, and continue moving forward. You are saying, without words, that your value is not optional, that your heart is not disposable, and that your attention is not something to be wasted. A man who truly respects you will notice. A man who doesn't will feel the loss. And that loss teaches him the hard lesson of ignoring someone who knows her worth. True respect also encourages healthy relationships. When you respect yourself, you attract people who understand and mirror that respect. You stop wasting time on those who fail to see your value. You stop being drawn into games, manipulation, and unhealthy power struggles. You create relationships built on mutual recognition, care, and understanding. And in those relationships, ignoring you is simply not an option because the standard has been set. Respect commands attention, and self-respect ensures that your attention is only given where it is truly appreciated. Let me be very clear. Respect is a lifestyle. It's not something you turn on and off. It's a pattern, a habit, a way of showing up in the world. It's the way you answer a text, the way you react to being overlooked, the way you carry your energy every single day. When a man ignores you, it's not about getting revenge or making him feel guilty. It's about showing him that your self-respect is untouchable, that your life is full, and that your love and attention are reserved for those who recognize and honor them. That's how respect commands attention. That's how ignoring you comes with consequences without you ever having to say a word. Respect also teaches lessons about integrity and boundaries. It shows that you will not compromise your standards, and it demonstrates that you value yourself enough to refuse poor treatment. Men pay attention when they see that ignoring you doesn't work. That's the power of self-respect. It makes your absence felt, it makes your energy priceless, and it teaches the price of ignoring someone who understands her value. You don't have to argue, threaten, or manipulate. You simply live fully, confidently, and unapologetically, and the lesson is learned naturally. Finally, respect commands attention because it is rooted in authenticity. When you respect yourself, you are not pretending to be someone you're not to get noticed. You are not bending over backward to chase attention. You are living in alignment with who you are, what you value, and what you deserve. That authenticity is magnetic. It attracts genuine attention, commands respect, and ensures that anyone who chooses to ignore you understands the cost of their choice. Self-respect is not negotiable. It is your power. And when you wield it consistently, ignoring you is no longer an option. It's a mistake with real consequences.